Figures revealed today show the alarming scale of child sex abuse church in Australia.
Hey guys, welcome to the JW Untold Truth channel. So this is day 1, part 6 of the Australian Royal Commission, and this is where we will be seeing Maxwell Frederik Horley declaration. He was one of the elders, or the elder pretty much, of the BCB congregation, and he is the one that was pretty much on top of the whole thing during that time. So we'll be hearing from his declaration, and we're gonna see some amazing statements here. We're gonna see how these elders really approaches these CSA's cases within the Jehovah Witnesses. Stay tuned and we'll be seeing what Maxwell will have to say about these cases.
Next witness, Your Honour, will be Max Horley.
Mr. Horley, it's necessary for you to be sworn. Would you take an oath on the Bible or an affirmation?
Bible.
There's a Bible there which I think may be appropriate. Would you hold that in your hand and repeat after me? I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission.
That the evidence I give in this Royal Commission.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Yes, thank you. Take your seat, please.
Do you have a copy of your statement 7 July 2015 before you?
Yes.
Are there any corrections or amendments you'd like to make to that statement?
No, I think it's complete.
Do you confirm the statement is true and correct?
Yes.
I tender the statement.
It'll become Exhibit 29-2.
Mr. Horley, you've been a Jehovah's Witness essentially your whole life, is that right?
That's correct.
You have been a Dawesville congregation elder since November 2012, and you serve there as secretary, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you were appointed in an elder in the Narrogin congregation in 1988, and you served there as secretary too, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
And there was only one other elder there at that time, that was Bill Neal.
When I was first appointed, there were 2 elders. One was quite elderly, and I think he then moved back to Perth, so that left Bill and I. Later on, there were 2 other elders appointed, and we had a situation arose where one was stood down and one moved away, so that left Bill and I at the time that this incident occurred.
Okay. And the first elderly elder that you referred to who moved back to Perth, was that Jack Shaylor?
That's correct.
And when Bill Neal was stood down in 1992, you became the presiding overseer, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Now, speaking generally now, but in your experience, as secretary of a congregation, what files or records do you keep?
We keep copies of the letters that are sent from the branch. We keep publisher record cards that report all their time spent in the ministry. Collate that information each month and send the details to the branch. We write letters when someone moves to another congregation and send a letter of introduction along with that. We also receive letters from other congregations when publishers move in. We keep records of committee cases that are held, judicial committee cases and things like that of a sensitive nature are kept on file too, in case we need to refer back to them in a later time. But those are only usually seen by the ones acting on that committee at the time.
Is there a file or a record for each member of the congregation?
No, only the publisher record card, which details how much time they spend in the ministry each month.
in respect of the files of a sensitive nature or records of a sensitive nature that you described following committee hearings, judicial committee hearings and so on, for how long are those retained?
I know we've had some information recently that after a certain period of time they are destroyed, but ones involving this particular type of case are supposed to be kept indefinitely.
And who has access to those records?
If it's a judicial case, then only the committee members that served on that committee, I understand, have access to go into that. They're all kept in the same place, but in the congregation I serve in now, all of the elders have access to the congregation file if they need to refer back to some of the letters that are on there or other records and so on.
And what information or records are passed on to the branch office?
The report each month for how much ministry is conducted by the congregation is compiled, and that's sent each month. Each year there is information logged about different activities at the congregation, how many publishers there are, how many unbaptised publishers and so on. That's just a brief overview. That's also sent to the branch. If they request information, then we might need to send a letter to them requesting that information. And sometimes for clarification of information, we might contact them in that way.
I gather from the documents I've seen that the congregation elders will also report to the branch on the outcome of judicial committee hearings.
Oh, that's correct. Sorry, yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, if we could have a look at paragraph 2.2 of your statement, that's on page 2. You'll see in the last line you mention victims being encouraged to report abuse. Are we to understand that as reports to the elders? Is that right?
Yes.
And also in 2.3, in the last sentence, you say the relevant Bible principles make it clear that failure to report another's wrongdoing can make one responsible before God, and this is emphasized to the congregation. I take it again that the reference there to reporting another's wrongdoing is to report to an elder.
Yes, in Leviticus, those that become aware of wrongdoing, not actually having done it themselves, but if they hear of it, then they report it to the elders, so that if the person isn't forthcoming, then the elders can step in and handle it.
So these references in these two paragraphs to reporting, that's not reporting to the secular authorities?
No, it's just to the elders at that stage.
Is it the expectation that a member of the church must report any other member's wrongdoing to the elders? Or is it only particular types of wrongdoing?
The encouragement is, depending on the seriousness of it, I guess too, is that they go to the person that's committed the wrongdoing and encourage them to go to the elders first, and basically making a proviso that if they don't, then the person that's become aware of it will approach the elders and let them know of it. Does that make myself clear enough?
So I can understand that in respect of, say, less serious issues that arise between people. Are there particular kinds of transgressions or wrongdoing or sins, as I understand you would call it, that must be reported to the elders?
Sins that we would have brought to the elders' attention more of the serious nature, things that could result in a judicial committee case being formed. So matters of a sexual nature and things like that. Other matters where it's just someone's upset at somebody, we would encourage them to go ahead and try and sort that problem out themselves. If it became worse, and eventually the elders were called in to try and arbitrate or whatever, but normally following the Bible principles, that is, they try to work those situations out themselves.
And can you assist by explaining where the line is drawn, or how the line is drawn between what's of a more serious nature requiring reporting and what isn't?
Yeah, the more serious nature are things set out in the scriptures that could result in someone being removed from the congregation if they're unrepentant. So sexual immorality and all the stages and things that covers, homosexuality, bestiality, all of those sorts of things.
And that would include child sexual abuse?
Absolutely, yes.
And those things are the ones, I take it, that are set out in the handbooks?
Yes, how we go about instituting the protocol and handling of those aspects, yes.
Now, turning to the case specifically of BCB, and perhaps we can have up on the screen paragraph 49 of BCB's statement. Now you'll see that BCB has said that you asked to speak to her on the basis of information you had received. Do you recall or remember the person BCF who's referred to there? That's a friend of hers to whom she had spoken. The first name of that person, which we're avoiding saying, it should be on a list in front of you?
Yes, I remember, but I don't remember her coming to see me.
Do you remember how you first got to hear of these issues that BCB raised in relation to Bill Neal?
From my recollection, it was BCB and BCC that came to see me at my home and tell me about the allegations.
When you say, from your recollection, you seem somewhat hesitant about that, is that because of the passage of time?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Horley, this allegation, I take it, when it came to you, you would have seen as a serious one.
Absolutely. There's a huge breach of trust, Your Honour.
Yeah, and as a consequence, I assume it would have stood out for you at the time? There's something unusual?
At the time, it was something that I hadn't dealt with before, and yes, it was a very serious nature. I took it as a huge breach of trust, not only for the person involved, but for the whole congregation. It would have repercussions that would flow through.
And the matter was reported to you because you were in a position of responsibility?
Yes.
Did you take any notes?
No, I didn't.
Can you help us?
I may have done at the time, I'm sorry, but...
you may have done.
I may have, but...
Where are they now?
They would have been destroyed.
Why?
We don't like to have any notes outside of what's kept on file in the congregation.
Why don't you like to have notes of a serious allegation?
There are brief notes kept in the file, but all other notes are destroyed.
Why is that?
I guess it's because we don't want them to fall into the wrong hands of other people to find them and go through them.
What are the wrong hands?
Well, we don't want our wives knowing what our stuff, what sort of things we're dealing with. We don't want other people in the congregation coming across that information.
So you want to keep it secret to the elders, is that what it amounts to?
I don't know about secret, but we want to try and limit the amount of people that have to have a look at that information, yes.
And why is it that you want to limit the people who will have access to the information?
Just to protect them, I guess. We don't...
Protect who?
Protect the person that's involved in it and the rest of the congregation, so that they don't have to know these I don't know, it's just the protocol that we've had in, so we just follow that information. Yeah.
And would you do the same thing today if someone came and reported to you a serious allegation of sexual assault? Would you destroy any notes?
Yes, that's our practice.
And what about telling other authorities? Are you aware of your obligations if someone tells you of a serious allegation of sexual assault?
If we have any hesitation, we contact the branch for advice on how we should proceed legally and scripturally. We don't attend, or we don't report it to the police. I think we encourage them to do that, but we give them the assistance to do that if they need that.
How do you encourage people to report to the police?
My understanding is a little bit unclear because I've never had to do it, so I'm not fully aware on the process, but if it did come to me, I would be just saying, this is a matter that you need to talk to the police about, or the legal authorities, and pursue it that way.
The allegation that came to you, you accepted was serious. Have you, in your time as an elder, had any other people come to you to report a serious allegation of a sexual nature?
Not of sexual assault, but generally misconduct on their own part, or someone that they know of.
What do you mean by misconduct?
Well, if someone's committed immorality with somebody else, then that's been brought to my attention, either by the person that's done it in the way of confession, or it may be that they've heard about it and brought it to my attention, and we've investigated it and handled it that way.
Yes, Mr. Stewart.
You said a moment ago to His Honour, Mr. Horley, you said that in relation to reporting to the police, you would say to the person, look, this is a matter that you need to talk to the police about, or the legal authorities, and pursue it in that way. Now, what sort of matter would that be? What sort of matter in your mind would be one that you would say to someone, they must go and report to the police?
It would be in the matters of an abuse situation where someone had been forcibly, something like this instance, or probably even worse, or if someone had been raped, or that sort of a matter where police proceedings would be needed.
Now, in this particular case, what were you told initially? You say you spoke with BCB and her husband. What was reported to you?
That the elder concerned had acted inappropriately while she had been staying at his home. From my recollection, it was more to do with the fondling of her breasts, but I think there was also an accusation about him watching her in the shower, and so that's from most of my recollection. I think there was inappropriate kissing of some sort too, but.
And these events occurred when she was a minor?
That's correct. correct. She was staying at his home. She'd finished school and was working at a bank, and because her family lived 45 minutes out of town, she would stay with them during the week and go home to her family on the weekends.
And did it occur to you that these were serious allegations that were made?
Any breach of trust, and particularly by an elder in that situation, was viewed very seriously.
And that fondling the breasts of a minor, but indeed anyone without their consent, would be a crime?
I think that occurred to me at the time, and certainly has done since then, but the way that we handle it now is totally different to what we did back then.
Yes, well, we'll stick with back then for now.
Yeah.
And observing someone whilst showering without their consent is a serious allegation, not only within the church's view,
Absolutely.
but even outside the church.
Mm.
And inappropriate kissing. In other words, by that I take it you mean tongue kissing.
That's what I
Of
understand.
a minor.
Yeah.
That's a crime too. Did you appreciate that?
Probably not like I should have done. Well, it shocked me to have that accusation brought to my attention. I knew it wasn't right. I didn't realise it might have been a criminal matter though.
And did you give any consideration to whether you should report it to the police?
I didn't, no.
Did you give any consideration to whether BCB should be encouraged to report it to the police?
No, I didn't.
Señoría, como probablemente me referiré durante el transcurso de la tarde, ahora sería un buen momento para licitar el documento. Debe haber 2 volúmenes en esta etapa y pueden ser licitados.
El paquete de licitación sería el anexo 29003.
No recuerdo esta reunión en particular. No. Lo siento, no recuerdo nada de eso. No, no estoy diciendo que no sucedió. No recuerdo que sucediera. Porque estaría de acuerdo con la práctica. ¿No sería así? Se había hecho con otro anciano presente. Por eso, la única... ¿Y Bill Neal también? Sí. Entonces hubo una reunión, también en su memoria, donde BCB tuvo que hacer sus alegaciones a Bill Neal. Sí. Y con usted y el señor. No puedo estar seguro de que su marido estuviera allí, pero si eso fue, esa reunión tuvo lugar. Y con usted y el señor. Porque es un principio bíblico para la voluntad de los testigos de Jehová, según tengo entendido.
¿Cuándo cambió el proceso?
Durante la década del 90, su señoría. ¿Se da cuenta de lo inapropiado que es este proceso?
Sí.
Puedo entender eso. Y, Supongo que por eso tenía...
Entiende la posición que pone a una mujer.
Absolutamente.
Usted en este momento
No, no lo hice. Solo estaba siguiendo el procedimiento que teníamos en ese lugar.
no recuerdo si ya habían publicado este manual. Teníamos 3 manuales antes de este. Cuando
Sobre la cuestión de su cambio que
le echaremos un vistazo. Está en la paquete de litigación 29003 y en particular
eso es correcto, pero a pesar de que tiene derechos de autor de 1991, muy bien, su investigación sobre esto fue a principios de 1992, ¿no fue así? Sí. ¿Hubo algún cambio en este punto? En otras palabras, el punto del proceso de alguien que tiene una acusación, debiendo hacerlo en presencia de la persona en contra a quien se hizo la acusación. No lo creo en esta etapa. Me sorprendería que lo viera porque viene del Antiguo Testamento, ¿no? Para establecerse. Viene de Deuteronomio. Correctamente. Si miramos en la pestaña 80 que tenemos, el presten atención a ustedes mismos y a todo el rebaño. Eso es correcto. Solo se podrá ejecutar a una persona. Creo, señor Horley, que tiene una... De ahí, según tengo entendido, se tomó que el acusador debe hacer la acusación en frente al acusado, ¿correcto? Ese es el entendimiento. Entonces, si tenemos en cuenta la próxima edición del manual de ancianos, el actual en la pestaña 120, en la página 89, anillo referencia 0090 y desplácese hacia abajo hasta el pie de la página. El presidente debe invitar al acusado a hacer una declaración personal. Si el acusado afirma que es inocente, los testigos a la mala conducta deben ser presentados a su testimonio. Debe darse en la presencia del acusado. Es mejor que los testigos dan su testimonio en persona. Así que eso es lo que se ha aplicado desde 2010. Entonces, a la luz de eso, ¿cuál es el cambio del procedimiento? Se trata de casos de comités judiciales de graves... ¿No tuvo un segundo testigo? Así es. ¿Sería lo mismo hoy si no tuviera un segundo testigo? Tomaríamos nos comunicaríamos con la sucursal primero y seguir su consejo, pero como creo que se puso de manifiesto en el preámbulo de esta mañana, ese sigue siendo el procedimiento que tendríamos que establecerlo con 2 testigos para poder llevarlo a una audiencia del comité judicial. Tomaríamos nuestro... Entonces, si
Tendría que buscar el consejo de la sociedad para manejar esa situación.
entiende que muchas acusaciones de agresión sexual no es presenciada por otra persona,
Así es, su señoría.
¿cómo maneja su iglesia esa situación entonces? Por lo general sería entrevistando a la persona y tratando de que confesara el mal que había cometido. Eso es generalmente... Nos está diciendo que sin esa confesión...
Creo que ese es el entendimiento que tengo en el momento.
¿Crees que esa es una situación buena de la iglesia?
No, no para las personas que están trayendo las acusaciones. Es una situación muy triste para ellos.
¿La iglesia aceptaría esa situación?
Yo creo, de nuevamente, no estoy al tanto de las políticas sobre esto.
Sin embargo, ¿qué pasa con su propia perspectiva al respecto?
Bueno, lo sé.
Has sido anciano durante muchos años. ¿Tú crees que es apropiado que la iglesia opere de esta manera?
Supongo que en estos asuntos de esta naturaleza se manejaría de...
Simplemente lidiando con la situación.
Si el acusado niega la acusación, los ancianos que investigan deben tratar de concertar una reunión con él y...
Así que la posición parecería ser que esa es la actual posición 2010 y posteriores, que la regla del testigo único todavía se aplica. Eso es correcto. Entonces, en la medida en que usted dijo antes que pensó que el procedimiento actual puede ser diferente, que no estaría bien entonces. Estoy corregido. Yo seguiría lo que la publicación aquí dice. Entonces, sí. Hay otro aspecto de la regla de los dos. Eso es correcto. ¿Qué sucede si hay una situación en la que hay dos testigos, pero tienes motivos para no creerles? ¿Para no creerles? Sí. No sé, nunca me he encontrado con eso. Sí, muy interesante. Su entendimiento del origen de esta regla de... Siguiendo con la información, le preguntaremos esto a su debido tiempo. Obviamente, de no que yo sepa. Porque está escrito en las escrituras. En eso es lo que basamos principalmente nuestras enseñanzas. Sí. Pero ese mismo pasaje que lo... No, obviamente no. Entonces, ¿cuál es la distinción? ¿Por qué flexibilidad en el uno y... Una vez más, seguiría el consejo de las sucursales sobre cómo podemos proceder con una situación como esta hoy. En ese entonces seguíamos los procedimientos que teníamos establecidos y no he tenido un ejemplo moderno. Algo más que Elizabeth dice en su testimonio. No recuerdo que ella lo haya cuestionado en ese momento y no sé exactamente lo que se dijo en esa reunión. Es básicamente solo las acusaciones. Algo más que Elizabeth dice en su testimonio, ella dice que tuvo esas reuniones pero nadie le explicó cuál era el propósito o cómo encajaban en cualquier tipo de procedimiento. ¿Aceptas eso? No recuerdo que ella lo haya cuestionado en ese momento y no sé exactamente lo que se dijo en esa reunión. Es básicamente solo las acusaciones que recuerdo de esa reunión. ¿Aceptas esto? Al menos para alguien que se siente vulnerable y luchando por dar detalles de cosas íntimas que le han pasado, parte del apoyo que Sí, hay apoyo, cosas de apoyo para estas situaciones, para ayudar a una víctima como esta. Las publicaciones que salen a través de la década del 1990, que fueron disponibles para todos, básicamente establece cuáles eran esas prácticas de apoyo. Y si ella no se sentía cómoda viniendo a los ancianos, incluso si una acusación hubiera llegado a los ancianos en esa manera, a través, como lo describes, una hermana madura, todavía requieren que el sobreviviente de ese abuso exponga las acusaciones al abusador en presencia del abusador? Una vez más, creo que ahí es donde los libros de pastoreo tienen la información, en el sentido que no tienen que enfrentarse el acusado en la actualidad. Podemos tomar su información de ella y luego hablamos con el acusado por separado. Bueno, no veo eso en el libro de pastoreo. Les mostré el pasaje que parece requerir exactamente el opuesto. ¿Hay algún otro pasaje al que quiera referirse? No recuerdo dónde está, pero pensé que fue el procedimiento que he visto en el pasado. Sin embargo, el punto es que usted tiene un procedimiento, así que incluso si la acusación proviene, la provisión de que ella puede hablar con otra hermana era proporcionar el consuelo después del hecho. Sí, para intentar que alguien más le hable al respecto aparte de los ancianos, si ella no se sintiera cómoda hablando con los ancianos. Entonces, ¿estás diciendo en tu entendimiento que los ancianos no tendrían que hablar con ella misma, la víctima? No, eso no es correcto. No, todavía tendríamos que manejarlo si el asunto no ha sido tratado ya. Entonces, no estoy seguro de entender este entendimiento. Ella habla con una hermana madura, pero creo que el señor Stewart está preguntando a usted si el proceso de investigación después de eso sería... Eso es correcto. Y eso sería en...
Según tengo entendido, el acusado no tiene que estar presente en esta reunión. Los dos ancianos discuten con la víctima y hablarían con la persona.
Pero si fuera solo la alegación de la mujer sin ningún testigo presencial, ahí sería donde terminaría, a menos que la...
No.
¿Confesó?
Sí.
Y eso es lo mismo.
Sí.
Supongamos que tiene...
Bueno, nuevamente tendría que buscar el consejo de la sucursal en esto para ver cuál sería nuestro proceso, porque las circunstancias y todas esas...
Pero supongo que por los manuales y los documentos, el proceso que tomarían, ¿cómo entenderías el procedimiento sin buscar lo que dice la sucursal? ¿Requeriría que la niña de 12 años hablara con dos hombres?
Sí.
Para hacer su alegación.
En ese caso, suponiendo que sus...
¿Qué quieres decir con instigadores? ¿Quieres decir si sus padres no son los abusadores?
Así es.
¿Cuál es el punto?
Una vez más, sin saber exactamente, seguiríamos la dirección en lo que harían.
Solo para aclarar, al decir que su comprensión del procedimiento actual es que no se requeriría que la víctima haga alegaciones en la presencia del imputado, que estaría en la investigación como así debe haber o no un comité judicial, ¿Es esto correcto? Eso es lo que tengo entendido, sí. Una vez más que se forma un comité judicial. Sí, si no hubiera confesado haber cometido un delito, entonces la víctima presentan testigos para añadir peso a las acusaciones. Y uno de los testigos obviamente sería la persona que había sufrido el abuso. Eso es correcto, sí. Puede mostrarse. No me sentía cómodo hablando mientras Bill estaba en la habitación. Después de esa primera reunión sentí que había muchas cosas que no había podido decir delante de Bill. Decidí ir a la casa de Max después de la reunión para aclarar las cosas. Absolutamente, sí. Y delante de otros hombres también, al menos 2 ancianos, ¿correcto? Eso es cierto, sí. Entonces no es un proceso que necesariamente vaya a salir con la historia completa, ¿verdad? Obviamente no en la primera reunión. Si podemos ver el párrafo 62 de la declaración de BCB, verá que se trata de una... No de la forma en que se presenta aquí. Recuerdo haber hablado con BCB y la intención fue que no queríamos que se propagara. Sin embargo, la esencia de esto era decirle que ella no debería hablar con nadie más al respecto. Eso estaba en la recomendación para ella de no hablar con otros, como lo había sido para la familia Neo y cualquier otra persona que haya tratado de plantear ese asunto. Tendríamos trato de mantenerlo en secreto o mantenerlo... Sí, intentar y limitar la conversación sobre el tema de Neo. ¿Aprecias que ella no podía hablar con nadie? Tampoco afuera de la congregación. Podría ella, ella todavía estaba trabajando en la comunidad. Ella tenía otras personas que ella habría conocido, por lo que era posible haber hablado con otras personas. Pero hablarles de algo tan íntimo como esto sería asociarse con ellos de una manera más allá de su empleo secular. Eso es correcto, sí. Por lo tanto, a los ojos de la iglesia, ella no debería hacer contacto. Ella no debe hablar con nadie afuera de los testigos de Jehová, a quienes ella escoge como... ¿No se supone que ella no debería tener amigos cercanos o asociados fuera de los testigos de Jehová? No lo aconsejamos de tener relaciones cercanas con personas fuera de los testigos de Jehová, pero si se toma el consejo o no, depende totalmente de ellos. Nosotros no los vigilamos, no andamos con un palo grande golpeándolos porque eligen asociarse con otra gente. El punto es, sin embargo, desde su perspectiva, que ella no debería estar asociándose en ese nivel Eso es básicamente la intención detrás de esa conversación, para tratar de limitar la conversación sobre el tema. Sí, bueno, es un poco diferente, ¿no? Es dirigida a la congregación. ¿Estás diciendo que ella no debería hablar de ello con cualquier otra persona para proteger la... También, sí. Queríamos limitar la propagación de los chismes sobre... ¿Ves que eso la deja sin nadie con quien pueda hablar? ¿Ah? No, como dije antes, ella pudo hablar con... Si podría... Ese es el punto, ¿no? Estás diciendo dos... Sí, ella decidiría hablar con otra hermana, eso sería en confianza. Por lo tanto, esa mujer que ella habló tendría que mantener su confianza y no hablar de eso a nadie más tampoco. ¿Entiende o aprecia cómo se sintió silenciada y no está respaldada por esta instrucción o solicitud de usted? ¿Aprecias eso? Sí, lo hago. Por supuesto, las enseñanzas de la iglesia son que las víctimas de abuso sexual deben ser tratadas con extremo consideración y amabilidad. Si te pastoreen y presten... Sí. Entonces, en este caso, ¿aceptarías que no cumplieses con esa instrucción? Bueno, ¿le ofreció a ella alternativas? ¿Acaso le ofreciste? No recuerdo haber hecho eso en ese momento, no. Usted dice que finalmente se debió a la falta de claridad de pruebas que los dejó a usted y a Doug Jackson incapaz de reunir un comité judicial y Sí. Solo estoy mirando cómo se formuló esta regla. Pues vamos a la pestaña 80. Preste atención a nosotros mismos y a todo el rebaño, y en particular en la página 111, anillo 43. ¿Qué tipo de evidencia es aceptable? Allí se establece. ¿Qué tipo? Entonces hay dos orígenes bíblicos para esta regla. ¿Tienes la apreciación de por qué esta regla todavía se aplica? En el siglo XXI, donde hay disponibilidad de evidencia y de hechos de prueba que han cambiado y se han desarrollado. Supongo que porque todavía nos apegamos a los principios bíblicos, tratamos de seguir esa línea de razonamiento. Estoy tratando de recordar lo que dice la última publicación. En este caso particular, usted ha expresado la simpatía y preocupación que tenía por BCB. No tuviste ningún motivo para no... No, no lo hice, por sorprendente que fuera. Estaba claramente bastante angustiada. Absolutamente, sí. Cuando dice en su declaración que no tenía prueba clara, ¿Qué tipo de prueba clara podrá haber en un caso como este? Si el acusado hubiera dicho, sí, hice esto, o sí, yo lo hice esto, o había evidencia de que había hecho algo más en líneas similares. Lo llevaré a los documentos en un minuto, pero como vamos a ver, se convirtió en una situación que usted y el señor Jackson recomendando al señor Neal que se retire. ¿Es eso correcto? Eso fue el resultado final, sí. Renunciar como superintendente y como anciano y, en cierto sentido, volver a ser un miembro normal de la congregación. ¿Es así como debemos entenderlo? Así es, sí. ¿Y se hizo un anuncio a la congregación de lo que hizo Neal? No, el anuncio sería que él había sido removido como anciano. Esa terminología de retirarse era algo que se usaba comúnmente, pero siempre significa que fueron eliminados de la congregación. No fue una decisión que él tomó, fue una decisión que tomó los ancianos en armonía con la decisión del cuerpo de ancianos también. Esa recomendación fue enviada a la sucursal. La sucursal respondería y diría, sí, se acepta esa decisión, ya no sirve como anciano. Entonces, el decir que ha sido removido como anciano, ¿estás diciendo eso necesariamente transmite que esa ha sido una decisión de otros sobre él, no por su propia decisión? Sí. Entonces, ¿transmite necesariamente alguna crítica o sanción de él? Entonces, la congregación... Absolutamente. Sí. ¿No hubiera sido de ayuda a la congregación un anuncio de los motivos de esta decisión, sabiendo lo que está diciendo sobre él? Aquellos que estaban al tanto de la situación habrían sabido exactamente por qué estaba siendo removido. Los que no sabían de la congregación saben que habría razones para ello, aunque desconociendo los detalles, confían en nuestras decisiones entonces para hacer esto. ¿Se tomaron alguna medida en particular para proteger a los niños de la congregación? ¿Ahora? No, en ese entonces, tras la decisión de destituir a Bill Neal como anciano. Las publicaciones que tenemos alientan a las familias a discutir estas situaciones con sus hijos y advertirles y ser conscientes de los peligros. Valorar que es a veces el padre el que instiga esto, eso lo hace muy difícil. Pero aún así, la madre también tiene un papel de ello. Y en una situación así podemos ver una zona de peligro. Por ejemplo, si otra joven se hubiera ido a quedar en la casa de Bill, tal vez hablaríamos con los padres sobre eso y les advertiríamos que eso no es un lugar apropiado para que dejen que su hija los visite. Lo haríamos probablemente, incluso hablaríamos con el acusado en ese momento y le diría, probablemente sea mejor que no tengas... ¿Qué tan grande era la congregación en ese momento? Teníamos alrededor de 90 publicadores. Esa es una congregación de tamaño típico. No, puede hacerse mucho más pequeño. Ese tenía originalmente tenía alrededor de 50. Había crecido a 90 en ese momento. Visitando esa congregación recientemente, había alrededor de unos 60 publicadores en ese tiempo. Sobre la cuestión de establecer lo que sucedió, ¿aceptarías, supongo, que la policía tiene mejores recursos que los ancianos, para investigar un delito? Y sí, diferentes entrenamientos y habilidades para hacer esto también, sí. Y la tecnología disponible para ellos. Tienen autoridad, pueden hacer cosas, tienen experiencia. ¿Tú aceptas todo esto? Entonces, no deberías saber. No estaba al tanto de las políticas y procedimientos en ese momento. No lo habíamos hecho. Había muy poca información disponible sobre si debíamos ir por políticas y procedimientos. ¿Estás hablando de interno de la iglesia? Sí. Porque bajar a la comisaría, supongo que no. Si se me permite decir, Si ella hubiera perseguido eso, no habría... Ahora, si podemos ver los informes que usted y el señor Jackson luego envió a la sucursal, está en la página 70 en el paquete. ¿Ha tenido la oportunidad de ver este documento o en los últimos días o semanas? Sí. Está fechado. Sí. ¿Y estás de acuerdo con lo que está ahí? Si volvemos a la primera página, queridos, también hablamos con otros hermanos y hermanas de la congregación que supo del asunto a través de otros. Esta distinción entre los hermanos y los mundanos, sabiendo cuál es la relevancia, cuál es la relevancia de esto, ¿por qué lo hizo? ¿Importa si había gente mundana que sabía? Supongo que no queríamos nada en detrimento de la limpieza de la congregación. ¿Le preocupa la reputación de la congregación? Sí, y el nombre de Jehová. Luego, el siguiente párrafo dice: después de entrevistar a los hermanos, comenzando con inmundicia, en este caso el contacto involuntario del seno, como opuesto a la conducta relajada, donde se es descarada, una conducta deliberada. Entonces aceptaste que se habían producido algunos actos, pero se sintió incapaz de aceptar que fueron intencionales. El acusado, eso fue todo lo que realmente admitió. A cuando se le formularon las acusaciones, él dijo, puede haber tocado. Entonces dices aquí, sentimos que el hermano Neo no podía hablar con confianza y le recomendamos que renuncie como anciano debido a estos apuntes que repasamos con él. ¿Qué Ya no tenía libertad de expresión frente a la congregación. Si tuviera que ponerse de pie y dar consejos a la congregación en relación con asuntos sexuales o en particular abuso. ¿Eso es porque había miembros en la congregación quien sabía esta historia? Eso es cierto. Usted dice en la carta que la impureza se había cometido en... Sí, yo. No sé. Bueno, esas son sus palabras. Sí, firmé la carta. Sí, eso fue, pero yo no fui el que lo escribió. Pero... debemos entender que usted está... No estoy de acuerdo con las varias ocasiones. Pero está en la carta. Sí, lo es.
Bueno, ¿qué debemos entender? Firmar.
Yes, it is.
Well, what are we to understand? Did you sign a letter that wasn't true?
Wording at the time when I signed it, it was a generalisation of the situation, and yes, I guess, Your Honour, I didn't take seriously the wording of it at that time.
Well, here you were reporting on a serious allegation, but you say you didn't take the reporting or the wording seriously at the time.
I don't really know how to answer that, Your Honour. It's what you're saying is probably true, yes.
How would you feel if you'd made the complaint and the person who was reporting on the outcome didn't take seriously the wording in the letter that they were signing?
I can see the point that you're making, sir, yes.
And tell me this, you told us earlier that apart from the touching of the breast allegation, BCB made other allegations to you, correct?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
There's no reference to those allegations at all in this letter, are there?
No.
Why not?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry. Not that I'm refusing to, it's just that I can't think of reasons why they're not in there.
Then you record there, we recommended to him that he be stepped down as an elder, and he agreed to this. Now, that seems to suggest that you offered him the opportunity to step down, and he did, rather than you removed him. Now, is there a distinction to be had? How are we to understand that?
No, it's just an unfortunate choice of words there.
So he was definitely deleted or removed?
Removed, yes.
And then you say in the letter, we feel no further action or restrictions need apply. Why was that? Did you consider other actions or restrictions which might be imposed?
In the case of a judicial committee, restrictions against commenting and having parts on meetings and things are what we refer to as restrictions. At this time, we didn't believe that Bill Neal needed to have those restrictions put upon him.
Well, what about not having church meetings, Bible studies in his home? That strikes as an appropriate or potentially appropriate restriction which might offer some safety.
I agree, yes. I don't think that action was taken at the time.
Well, it wasn't taken. The point is, did you consider it?
I can't recall considering it, no.
And then if we look at the last paragraph of the letter on the second page, or second last actually, towards the end, it says, also, brothers, I would recommend that once this has died down and it appears that Brother Neil again has the freedom of speech, that he be recommended as an elder again so that he can be of help in the congregation, as he has done in the past. By this dying down, you mean once the controversy has abated, I take it?
It would take a long time, many years in fact, for that to have died down. That's, again, it's an unfortunate wording. In hindsight, we would have worded that much differently to what it is there. Matters of this nature take many years for, if ever, to to die down completely.
Well, that was really the focus of your concern there about in taking action against Mr. Neal was about his reputation. Is that right?
Not at all, no.
Well, his reputation in the congregation, his freedom of speech.
His, sorry, what was the questioning again?
Well, that was at the centre of your concern in deciding to remove him as an elder, was his reputation in the congregation.
Not so much his reputation, but how to word it?
Well, it suggests your concern is with his efficacy as an elder.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's right.
So your concern as an elder there, as I understand it from this letter, was about the proper functioning of your organisation. Is that right?
Yes,
It wasn't about the protection of children in your congregation.
probably not.
It wasn't about what support you could offer to BCB.
That must have had some bearing on it, but yeah, it was more with his qualifications to teach.
Now, you say in your statement that you understand that Bill Neal was later reappointed as an elder in a different congregation. Is that right?
Yes,
And as I understand it, you had nothing to do with that.
no, that's true.
And under the existing practices, should you not have been consulted about that, having been the elder involved in his removal?
I was surprised at the time, yes.
But then if we look at tab 74 of that bundle, this is now a letter from you earlier this year. It'll come up in a moment. You'll see it's to the service desk on the 6th of January 2015, and what you describe as a brief summary of events leading to the deletion of Brother Neal from serving as an elder in the Narrogin WA congregation around 1993, while I was serving there. How did this letter come about?
Beg pardon?
How did this letter come about? What brought you to write this letter in 2015 to the branch?
Someone from the branch contacted me and asked me what my recollections were and would I please put them in a letter and send it to them.
Was it explained to you why that information was being sought?
I think mention was made about the Royal Commission, but I thought it was one of the situations that was being looked at, and that it might proceed to the Royal Commission.
And by this time, of course, Bill Neal was deceased,
Yes,
and you knew that.
yes, I attended his funeral.
And that was, as I understand it, about 11 years ago. Would that be right?
Quite possibly. I don't know exactly the time, but yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
Goodly number of years ago.
Yep.
Now, this correspondence is addressed to the service desk. I take it was someone from the service desk that contacted you in the way in which you've mentioned.
Yes.
In your understanding, what's the distinction between when you would correspond with the service desk or the legal department?
It may have been a member of the legal department that contacted me, but the letter was addressed to the service department.
Well,
service desk. Yeah.
moving away from this particular letter, generally when, as an elder, you're corresponding with the branch,
We send stuff to the service
it
desk.
seems to me that there's some correspondences with the service desk and some is with the legal department, and I'm trying to understand where the
Okay.
distinction arises. So I'm asking you, what is your understanding as to when you would communicate with the service desk as opposed to when you would communicate with the legal department?
If the legal department had said send it to us at the legal department, that's how the letter would have been addressed. In this case, they asked us to send it to the service department.
But generally,
Service desk.
moving away from this letter, generally in your work as an elder, when would you contact the service desk as opposed to the legal department and vice versa?
The legal department I would contact in cases pertaining to legal matters. Our information now is if a case of child abuse was raised, we would contact the legal desk straight away. But normally anything that goes through the service desk, and then they assign it to the appropriate department from there.
Just to understand you, so you would contact the service desk but be expected to be passed on to the legal department. Is that what you say?
They would decide if that's where it needed to go, yeah. But as I said about contacting the legal department in matters pertaining to legal cases and things like that, if we needed direction in a hurry, that's who we'd contact.
And generally with regard to direction as to handle investigations and complaints, would that come from the service desk?
Yes.
Now you say in that letter in the fourth paragraph, the one beginning when BCB raised the allegation against Brother Bill concerning being touched inappropriately, I viewed it very seriously. I listened to both to try and ascertain the facts. Sadly, it became a matter of her word against his. There were no other witnesses. And then you say BCB was an attractive young sister and often got around the house in her nightwear, as was the custom of the other children. Now, what do you consider the relevance of that observation?
That was one comment that Bill had made to me, that she was wearing her nightwear at the time.
Well, it suggests that you thought that might have somehow lessened Bill Neal's culpability.
Not at all. No. In fact, it should have raised stronger warning bells than it did at the time, because it all pointed to the fact that he obviously had noticed it and was affected by that.
Because you accept, of course, that a child can't validly consent to being sexually abused. You accept that, of course.
Yes.
And can never be blamed for it.
Yes.
Because that's in the Church's own teachings, isn't it? That children can't seduce and should not be blamed.
Mm.
Yes. Those are my questions.
Yes, does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Raju. Just in relation to the letter that...
Just identify
I beg
yourself
your
again,
pardon,
if you
sorry. My name is Gallagher and I represent BCB.
Okay.
Just in relation to the letter that Council Assisting was just referring to, behind tab 74, you note in that letter, don't you? Is that in front of you there?
Yep.
Not only the comment, the part of the letter that was just referred to by Council Assisting, but you note also, don't you, that Bill would kiss her goodnight as he did with his daughters. Do you see that there?
Yes.
That was very much lessening his, Mr. Neal's conduct, wasn't it? Do you understand what I mean by that? I'm sorry, you know the allegation to have been, don't you, that he inserted his tongue into her mouth when he kissed her goodnight?
Bill never admitted to that. The way that he put it across was that he would say goodnight to all of the girls before they went to bed.
So what about the accusation from the person who was abused? The accusation was, wasn't it, that the tongue was inserted into her mouth?
I believe so, yes. I can't recall that being said at the time, but it's quite possible that it was.
You took no notes of your initial discussion with BCB and BCC,
No.
Is that so? Your recollection was that they came to your home, that is BCB and BCC, is that right?
That's what I recalled, yes.
You understand that BCB's recollection is that you approached her after being told of an allegation from another member of the faith, correct?
That may be so. I don't recall that.
And certainly if somebody is has been told of an allegation of wrongdoing, the faith requires them to come forward and tell an elder. Is that right?
Sorry, I don't understand that question.
If somebody's told of wrongdoing,
Yeah.
the Jehovah's Witness faith requires that person to inform an elder. Isn't that so?
They give the... yes. Short answer, yes.
And that's how you came, do you recall, that's how you came upon the information that there was an allegation of wrongdoing from Bill Neal, not from BCB, but from another source?
No, I don't recall that.
In questions asked of counsel assisting, you indicate that just as to taking Mr Neal to BCB's home, that your evidence was, is this correct, that you did not explain what the process was that was underway at that time? Is that correct?
That's possible.
Well, did you or did you not explain to her what was going on?
In the information here, it's put across that I went to see them with Bill on my own. I don't recall that happening. I thought I only went to see them with Doug Jackson, and I don't recall it being in their home. Normally those sort of events take place at the Kingdom Hall, which...
Yeah. You were 28 at the time, weren't you? Does that accord with
No, I
your
was about
information?
32.
32.
By 1992, yes.
But, so still quite a young man.
That's right.
And how old was Bill Neal at the time? Do you know?
I would like to hazard a guess.
Certainly he was more senior than you.
Absolutely, yeah.
He was a presiding overseer, wasn't
Yes.
he? So that certainly if BCB's recollection is accurate that you attended with Bill Neal, it would have been a situation where he would have been the most senior person in the room. Do you agree with that proposition?
Certainly would have been the oldest, yes.
Sorry?
He would have been the oldest and the most experienced from the church, yes.
Yes. And the more senior member of the church in the room. And you know, don't you, that that BCB and BCC were both quite devout at that time?
Yes.
In the sense that it would have been obvious to you that you were, as an elder, trusted by them?
Yep.
And that they were handing themselves over to your guidance. Do you agree with that proposition?
Yes.
So that, looking back on it now, can you see that taking the abuser to somebody's home is totally inappropriate?
Yes.
You is it the case, sir, that the thrust of inquiry in relation to somebody being involved in wrongdoing is to protect the congregation?
Yes.
So that, in the sense, and excuse me a moment, if we could go to tab 84 and reference 0309. Which is at page 29, the second column. If I could refer you to the second column and about point 7 down the page, the sentence commencing, "It is not his status as an authority figure." Can you see that there? In the second column.
No, not yet.
So I understand it to be, I'm sorry, Your Honour, I hope I haven't got the wrong tab. Tab 84. Excuse me a moment. Oh, I beg your pardon. Maybe I could, it's the "let us abhor what is wicked." Your Honour, I beg your pardon. So certainly 85, I think, Councillors. Tab 85, thank you. Page 29, or in the top right-hand column, 0309, top right-hand of the page. If you could go to the second column, about point 7 down that, you see the sentence commencing, "It is not his status as an authority figure." Can you see that, sir?
Not yet. Oh, yes. Yep.
It is not his status as an authority figure that should be of concern, but rather the unblemished purity of the congregation.
Yes.
And that was the purpose of your inquiry, wasn't it? To protect the congregation from
Yeah.
Bill Neal.
Yeah.
Not to protect BCB.
Well, her included in the congregation. She was part of the congregation.
As a victim
Yes.
of abuse, she wasn't protected, but as a member of the congregation, you were seeking to protect her. Is that right?
As well, yes.
You indicate that you did not speak harshly to BCB when you were being asked questions by a counsel assisting you. He put to you that you should treat victims with they should be treated with kindness. You agreed with that and indicated that you didn't speak harshly with her. Do you agree, though, that when a young woman has made allegations of sexual impropriety against an elder, that taking that elder to her is harsh treatment of her?
I can understand how she would view it that way, yes. And
well, do you?
on the surface, if I try to put myself in her position, yes, I'd feel exactly the same.
Certainly, it's the case now, isn't it, that I'll withdraw that. Making this inquiry and going to her and having her face her abuser, or that is the accused face his accuser, was all about disciplining Bill Neal, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And certainly it's the case now that if there is a police inquiry on foot in regards to a matter, that disciplinary proceedings will run parallel with that. Do you agree with that?
I don't have any experience with that at this time, so...
in the sense that if there is a police inquiry on foot, certainly members of the church and the congregation are told not to interfere with the police inquiry. Is that right?
I would think that would be reasonable, yes. I don't remember instructions in that way, but it does make sense, yes.
If you were to be confronted with this situation today, what would you do differently to what you did then?
First thing would be to contact the branch for direction, look up any of the relevant information that we've got, the latest information, and proceed following their direction.
Before contacting the branch, what would you do in relation to what you knew of the complaint?
Try and establish the facts.
How would you do that?
Oftentimes, if someone comes to us, we hear the information just on a one-on-one, but I think the indications are that it's better to have two elders there so that we can present that to the branch with the two of us, like on a conference call or something.
Specifically in relation to BCB's situation, what would you do differently today? Or would you conduct yourself in exactly the same way as you did?
No, I wouldn't do the same.
What would you do differently?
Being the only other elder there, and if the circuit overseer wasn't due to visit like that, like he was in that case, I would have called an elder from another congregation and we would have heard her allegations together, and then we would approach the branch for direction.
Would you have a female, a sister involved in relation to talking with the person who was making complaint about sexual impropriety?
That would be up to the person making the accusations, I would think. If she wanted to have someone there as a support, I think that would be the case.
Mr. Horley, I understand how the church is organised, but what the process means is that the investigation, take a case such as this one, of a woman's allegations is made entirely by men. Correct?
I'm sorry, the
investigation within the church is conducted entirely by men.
That's correct, yes.
You think that's appropriate when the allegation comes from a woman and maybe a young woman?
That's the procedure that we have in place.
No, but I'm asking you a different question.
Well, that sort of comes into my personal feelings. I think I would still have to be bound by what the branch directs me to do.
Secondly, as here, you as an elder were being asked to investigate allegations of a person who you had worked with as an elder.
Yes.
Now, to an outsider, that doesn't seem like a fair process. Do you understand why that is?
Yes, and that's why we would have another elder there. In this case, the circuit overseer visited. He didn't know Bill as well as I did, so he tends to be a little bit more impersonal in the...
Well, he might, but you're still there.
Yeah.
And you know this elder well and have worked with him.
Yes, and I remember at the time I was very shocked at the treatment or the allegations that were made against him. So to me, he had betrayed me and as much as the congregation, obviously not as much as the person that had the victim in this case, but to me it went against everything that we've been taught and trained as elders. Bill was a man that I'd known for about 16 years, growing up as a teenager in the congregation, looking to him and respecting him. Then being appointed as an elder myself, being mentored by him in the way that we should treat the flock with tenderness and care, and we're taught to be a hiding place, a refuge, somewhere that they can go and seek help and to really care for their spiritual needs. And now this situation, Bill had completely betrayed all of those things. So it wasn't like I was looking at things from a siding with him. I was sticking with the teachings that I'd been trained in, and looking at it impartially and trying to look at it that way.
You ultimately reported that his conduct was the result of accidental touching, didn't you?
That was his.
Well, that's what
his
you
description.
That's what you reported.
Okay.
That's what you found.
Right.
Agreed?
That's all that he admitted to.
Yes, and that's what your finding was. Now, again, to an outsider, could you see that an outsider may think that when someone who you know well is being investigated by you, that may not be a fair process?
I can understand how they would see that, yes.
Do you think that's a process which the church should change?
I don't know how to comment on that. They may have made changes in that process, not according to the book that we have, but where it says that we contact the branch, then the direction that they give in that instance may give us further bearing on that.
Yes.
Thank you. I won't keep you much longer, Mr. Horley, but have you come to know about the full extent of BCB's allegation against Bill Neal?
No. I only know what was dealt with at the time.
So you don't know that she, for about 3 or 4 years, was subject to indecent assaults, effectively, where she was tongue-kissed by this elder?
No, I'm not aware of that.
That she was on one occasion forced to sit on the bathroom floor, spread her legs and have his finger inserted into her vagina.
No, I'm not aware of that.
So the reason I highlight that is that certainly it's not the sort of thing that... I'll withdraw that. Does that come as a shock to you that
Absolutely.
that she actually endured that? Or experienced that at the hands of Bill Neal?
Yes, it's a shock, yes.
And do you think the fact that it's only coming to light now has something to do with the process that you engaged in when she made initial complaint?
I feel very saddened if that is the case.
It's understandable that it would be. Do you agree with that, in the sense that she's confronted with her abuser and somebody who she would know was close to her abuser, which you've just given that evidence? It's understandable that she wouldn't make full disclosure. That's correct, isn't it?
I can see what you're saying, yes.
She needs a more nurturing and supportive environment in which to make full disclosure, doesn't she?
It would appear that way, yes, from what you're saying.
And what is the church going to do about that? Do you have any thoughts on that going into the future?
I don't have any comments on how they arrive at the decisions that they make. I just follow the procedures that they have there in place. At the time we did the best that we could with the information that we had. Now handling the situation again might be completely different.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No, Your Honour.
No, Your Honour.
Mr. Stewart?
Nothing further, Your Honour.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Horley. You're excused.